Let me ask you something. Have you ever felt alone? I don't mean the kind of alone where you're physically by yourself. I mean that heavy, quiet kind, where you're surrounded by people and still feel invisible, where the world keeps moving, but somehow you feel like you've been left behind. Yeah, that kind. Maybe it hits you at night when the world goes quiet. Maybe it sneaks up on you during a scroll through social media, watching others laugh, glow, succeed, while you sit there wondering when it'll be your turn. It's that ache, that whisper in your chest that says, something's missing. In society? Oh, it doesn't make it any easier. We've been conditioned to believe that being alone is a red flag, that it means you're unwanted, unchosen, that if you're not constantly surrounded by people, you must be doing something wrong. But here's the thing they don't tell you. What if this season of being alone isn't a punishment, but a powerful invitation? What if this silence, the one that feels deafening right now, is actually the very space where your truest voice is waiting to be heard? See, there's a difference between loneliness and solitude. Loneliness feels like you're waiting for someone to come and save you. Solitude? That's when you realize you were always capable of saving yourself. Solitude is not emptiness. It's spaciousness. It's breathing room for your soul. It's where you reconnect with your own thoughts, your forgotten dreams, your messy, beautiful truths. And it's not easy. God, no. Facing yourself without distractions is brave work, because it means sitting with the discomfort, the silence, the parts of you you've been avoiding. But here's the magic. When you stop running from yourself, you start returning to yourself. And that's where the real transformation begins. So if you're listening to this right now, feeling like you're the only one, please hear me when I say, you're not behind. You're not broken. You're becoming. This chapter of solitude you're in, it might just be the sacred pause before your next great becoming. Don't rush it. Sit with it. Listen to it. Learn from it. Because the most important relationship you'll ever have is the one you build with yourself. And you, my friend, are worth getting to know. You know, we spend so much of our lives waiting for someone to notice us, waiting for someone to tell us we're enough, waiting for someone to come along and finally complete us. And for the longest time, I believed that too. I thought love validation would arrive from outside me, like some movie moment where the music swells, and suddenly everything makes sense because they showed up. But life isn't a script. No one's coming with cue cards and perfect timing. No one's coming to save you or fill in the blanks. And maybe that sounds harsh at first, but hear me out. It's actually the most freeing thing you'll ever realize, because it means you don't have to wait anymore. You are the main character. You're the writer. You're the one holding the pen. And yeah, I know, that can be terrifying, because now it's all on you. But it's also all yours. Your story. Your voice. Your power. The real journey? It begins when you stop performing for the world. When you stop saying yes to things that drain you, and finally start listening to the quiet no echoing inside. We don't talk about that enough. The pressure to blend in, to be agreeable, to not rock the boat. So we become chameleons. We laugh at jokes we don't find funny. We go places we don't want to be. We hide parts of ourselves we've been taught are too much. And little by little, we disappear. Not from others, but from ourselves. That's the loneliest place of all. When you can't even find you inside your own life. Because loneliness? It's not really about whether people are around you. It's about whether you are around you. Whether your heart, your soul, your truth are still in the room. And if you've been feeling distant from yourself lately, like you don't even recognize the person in the mirror, you're not alone. But here's what I want you to know. You can come home to yourself. Bit by bit. Breath by breath. You can begin again. Start by saying one honest sentence. By choosing one thing today that feels true. And by letting go, just a little, of the need to be anything other than you. You don't need fixing. You need remembering. You've always been enough. And maybe, just maybe, that's where your real story begins. You know, there's this moment in life, sometimes quiet, sometimes loud, when you look at yourself and wonder, am I really? Not the version people clap for. Not the identity built on achievements or appearances. Not the roles you've played for years. Just you. Raw. Unfiltered. You. And if that question feels heavy, you're not alone. Because finding yourself? It's not a straight path. It's not a neat checklist. It's a remembering, coming back home. And it all begins with self-acceptance. That means looking at every part of yourself, the light, the shadows, the contradictions, and saying, yes, this is me. I see you. The parts you're proud of, and the parts you wish you could hide, the moments you rose, and the ones you fell apart. Self-acceptance isn't about perfection. It's about permission. Permission to be real, to be flawed, to be whole. And with that acceptance comes something sacred, self-knowledge. Not the kind you find in a textbook, but the kind that unfolds in silence, when you finally pause and listen. What do I really think? What do I actually feel? Not what I'm told I should feel. What patterns keep repeating? What wounds still ache quietly in the background? When you start asking those questions, something begins to shift. Because here's the thing. So much of who we think we are is just noise. Labels, stories, expectations layered on since childhood. You're the shy one. You're the fixer. You're too much. You're not enough. But what if you could drop all of that? What if you stopped defining yourself by what the world projected onto you, and started defining yourself by what feels true within you? And yeah, maybe that feels too big at first. So start smaller. If you don't know who you are yet, begin by figuring out who you're not, what you don't want, what no longer fits. Sometimes clarity doesn't come with a lightning bolt. Sometimes it arrives softly, in the things you refuse to carry anymore. And then, there's solitude. That space that once felt like punishment, it slowly becomes a place of power. You start realizing, you don't need constant noise to feel alive. You don't need a crowd to feel worthy. You don't need validation to feel real. In the quiet, your focus sharpens. Your thoughts settle. You begin to create, to reflect, to become. Some of the greatest minds in history, writers, philosophers, inventors, they didn't fear solitude. They sought it. Because they understood something we're only starting to remember. That being alone is not being empty. It's being full of potential. And in a world that pulls your attention in 100 directions, learning to be with yourself is a revolutionary act. So if you're walking this path right now, if you're feeling lost or unsure or just in between, trust that this part matters too. The sitting, the searching, the silence. It's not a pause. It's a beginning. Because before the world can truly meet you, you have to meet you. Let's talk about something that doesn't get enough credit. Boredom. Stillness. Silence. Yeah, the things we try to avoid with noise, distraction, and scrolling. But what if those moments, the ones that feel dull or empty, are actually sacred? What if they're where the magic begins? You see, when we give our mind space to breathe, to digest what we've learned, to reflect on what we've been through, to reset from the constant input, something beautiful happens. Clarity. In that stillness, we start to hear ourselves again. And yes, at first it might feel uncomfortable. Because when the noise dies down, the thoughts get loud. The doubts, the memories, the questions. But sit with it. Let your mind wander. Embrace the boredom. Because that boredom? It's the spark that lights the fire of creativity. It's the quiet corner where your truest ideas are waiting. The ones that aren't borrowed. The ones that actually belong to you. And in this space, you begin to belong to yourself. Not in some poetic, distant way, but in a very real, very grounding way. You start realizing that being whole within yourself makes everything else, every relationship, every connection, a bonus, not a lifeline. You stop chasing. You start creating. So take this solitude and make it yours. Turn it into a time of intentional growth. Make your goals your closest companions. Not just the ones that sound impressive, but the ones that light something inside you. Ask yourself, what does success really mean to me? Not to Instagram, not to my parents, not to society, but me. And once you define that, create a plan. Not a perfect plan, not an overwhelming one, just a direction. And take one action, then another. Make the journey enjoyable, not a burden. Because when your actions are aligned with your nature, it stops feeling like a punishment and starts feeling like freedom. Now here's something powerful. Make your alone time something you actually look forward to. Romanticize it. Light a candle. Make a playlist. Cook for yourself like you're someone you love. Wake up for a walk and let the morning hold you gently. Turn on a podcast that feeds your curiosity. Pick up a book that sparks your imagination. Learn something new, not for productivity points, but for the thrill of growth. Let excitement live in the small things. Challenge yourself. Surprise yourself. And eventually, you become independent. Not just financially, but emotionally. You stop waiting for someone to go with you. You go. You take the trip. You sit in the cafe alone. You dance to your own playlist. You become the person who doesn't need permission to live. And when you start living like that, everything shifts. You're no longer surviving loneliness. You're thriving in solitude. You're no longer hoping someone else will fulfill your dreams. You're out there fulfilling them, for yourself. Because life isn't something someone else hands to you. It's something you build, with your time, your energy, your choices. So practice the art of being alone. Make it sacred. Make it joyful. Make it yours. And you'll see, you were never just alone. You were becoming.